Well, hello, DPA fans. Thanks for joining us. Today we have a special guest, um, Maestro Garrick Ohlsson, our wonderful pianist who will be featured at the first Masterworks Series concert in September. He will be our first soloist for my inaugural season as music and artistic director. So, Garrick, welcome.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the title of maestro. But I guess we're all maestro here.
Oh, you are definitely, certainly a master at the piano. So, for those who are new to DPA, or for those who are not familiar with the piano, the pianist of today, Garrick is one of my legendary favorite pianists of all time. He was the gold medalist winner for the International Chopin competition in 1970s, and I've heard, I have many of your CDs. I've also had an opportunity to be an assistant when you were performing at the Cincinnati Symphony when I was working there. Which is probably the first time we ever met. So, um, Garrett, I think this is your first time performing in Dayton.
No, I've played with the Dayton Philharmonic. It's been a long, long time, so you'll have to look
Okay.
in your archive. But I think maybe more than once. I'm not sure. Maybe twice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So for the concert that we're doing together in September, we're performing the Rachmaninoff Second Piano Concerto, which I'm sure you have performed countless times. Like, do you actually keep a record of how many times you perform each piano concerto?
I have kept a record, but well, let's see. When I was about 15, I
Hmm.
read an interview with the great violinist Isaac Stern, in which he
Hmm.
talked about keeping a record of every performance on
Okay.
a box of cards. And this was before we had spreadsheets or computers, don't forget.
Sure.
And so you just sort of enter the composer's name, the work, and then where you played it, and with whom.
Mhm.
And so I thought at age 15, I was very ambitious, and I thought this would be very nice to do. So I did. And I kept up to it pretty well until about this century. Then I got very lazy, and I've been meaning in all of my spare time, which I never have, to go back.
Do you recall your first time performing the Second Piano Concerto?
I think I do. It may be an Ohio thing. It may have been up in Toledo.
Gotcha.
And
This is
actually, this
a
is
wonderful
not
work.
the third piano concerto, which is considered the monster one. They're
Yes.
both, the second is not a monster, but it's not for kids to try at home without adults present because you have to be a really grown-up good pianist to play it. Um, the third I learned when I was very young, and I have played literally countless times, probably hundreds of times. The second
Mhm.
I learned later in my life, probably when I was about 40. And so
Really?
yeah, it's not a childhood, it's not one of those childhood pieces, but I have played it. Maybe I don't know if I've played it 100 times yet, but
Mhm.
getting close to that. I love it incredibly.
Mhm.
Perhaps even more than the third, although they're both wonderful.
Mhm.
For me, the Rachmaninoff second is not only gorgeous and beautiful and exciting, of course, which everybody
Mhm.
knows, but for me, it's a kind of a perfect piece. I mean, when was it written? When was it written? Roughly around 1900, somewhere, or just
Right.
before that. It's a late romantic work, and my feeling is that if Mozart were alive in, let's say, 1895, this is the concerto he might write, because it
Mhm.
has this quality of it starts at the beginning and it has a flawless line straight to the last note. There is no point in which you could look at it musically and think, oh, the composer might have done differently, or isn't quite so inspired here, or but everything just unfolds in the most. It never touches ground until the end. You know,
Mhm.
it's a magic
Mhm.
piece for me that way. The level of inspiration is high. Now, in the Great Third Concerto, which will be many people's favorite, so
Mhm.
they'll be offended by my opinion. Um, I love it equally, at least. And I think he tries to do much more in the third, and he
Mhm.
succeeds much more as a composition in doing much more than what is basically the lyric masterpiece of number two. But
Yes.
but it's not it. it's not as flawless. You hear the gears. Sometimes it struggles
Right.
more to realize itself. And of course, the struggle and the heroism of the struggle and the success, of course, is also very thrilling. But I just adore the second. I've never ever felt tired of it or like it's been hackneyed or overplayed. It's just a glorious thing.
I think it really is the magical piano concerto that doesn't get tireless. You could there's so many beautiful moments throughout the three movements that just takes you away from today, like it just takes you away from all your busy life, from all the notifications on your phone and your emails. It just transcends you to a different place where music just wraps you. The
Well,
date
yes,
for yeah, the date for the second piano concerto is 1900 and 1901, which was the period that was extremely difficult for him because of his failure from the first symphony, which was 1897. So I think we associate the second piano concerto in many ways, and also the second symphony as his recovery, right, from his dark side.
that's right. Yeah.
Mhm,
No, I mean, his first symphony was a catastrophic failure.
mhm,
Um, and uh, and in Russia at that time, um, which was so, as it is now, but especially then was so music crazy, that
mhm,
failure was very much more public than it might be in America right now. It
mhm,
was he was mortified and ashamed and fell into a deep depression. Of course, it tied into his natural insecurity, which we
mhm.
don't think about now because we think of Rachmaninoff as one of the all-time successes
Right.
in music, pianism, and even conducting. Um, but he fell into this deep depression and was, as we know in the biography, was treated by a psychiatrist, I believe,
Yeah,
or
Dr. Dahl, I think
Dr. Dahl,
neurologist. Yeah.
Nikolai Dahl, who treated him
Mhm.
with, among other things, hypnotherapy.
Right.
And it seems to have worked because, Dahl said you will return and you will have creative energy and your next work will be an immense success, and it did. So this was the sort of return to life for Rachmaninoff,
Mhm.
and a kind of confirmation of his talents and genius. But nevertheless, Rachmaninoff himself was one of a trio of composers who were terribly insecure. I mean, actually,
Mhm.
not only a trio, many composers are quite insecure about what they do.
Right. But he's known for being one of the insecure ones, though.
Yeah, he, Tchaikovsky, and Bruckner. I mean,
Mhm.
if a colleague or friend suggested to any of them that, you might cut this section, they didn't think about it. They just did it just in case, it's hard to believe because they're such monumental creators. But
Right.
but even genius comes with insecurity sometimes. So
Absolutely.
so it's that's actually very touching. Yes, so I'm thank you for reminding me. So it's 1900 pretty square. So it's yeah,
Yeah.
it's literally the tail end of Romanticism.
I think when we reflect the history of classical music and all of the dedications of classical composers for their symphonies or their sonatas or their concerto, I can't think of any other composer who dedicated to their psychiatrist or their neurologist. They usually you dedicate it to the person a patron who paid a lot of money for the composition or, some kind of honorarium, but not to a neurologist or a doctor in this sense.
I guess this is a pretty rare one. That's true. I never
That's a
thought of
rare one.
it that way.
Yeah,
Yes, um, uh, it's often to someone the composer's in love with, or
right,
and
exactly.
much more often patronized by, and
Well,
or the actual person who's commissioned the work. Yeah, so
exactly.
that is true. Yes. I would also like
Um,
I loved
mhm,
what you said about how this piece and this era of peace
mhm,
takes us away from modern life. It projects us fantasy-wise the way that
mhm,
films do back into an earlier era,
mhm,
which may have had its difficulties, but also had a glamour and what seems like a sureness about its direction and its love and
mhm,
its passions. And it's yes, it's a hyper romantic piece. I mean, it's like when you watch those series on TV about
Mhm.
you know English aristocracy in the 19th century or Russian aristocracy or whatever. It's all
Yeah.
everybody's very good looking and the colors are marvelous.
Mhm.
And it seems to be not as tormented by including the modern trivia, which we have so much of.
One of the things I absolutely love that has such a Russian color to this piano concerto is his usage of the clarinet. You
Hmm.
think about the Tchaikovsky Symphony Number 5, you think about Rachmaninoff's Second Symphony with the long clarinet solo. Here in this concerto, there's this dialogue between the piano and the clarinet. There's also dialogue between the piano and the flutes, but this conversation between woodwind and the piano in his piano concerto is so special that you don't quite see it in other former piano concertos of like the time of Mozart, the time of Beethoven, or
That's
time of Chopin.
no, that's right. Well, of course, Chopin was not very good, or he was not very interested in orchestration. He wasn't very good at it. But
Right.
but no, you don't. It's a kind of a color. It's kind of what we'd call it a romantic coloration. That,
Hmm.
as you say, a very Russian sound. That
Yeah.
yeah, we associate with that with romantic Russian romantic music. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, for example, when I play the piece, I mean, uh, the clarinet solos in the second movement. The clarinet's more important than the piano. If you,
Hmm.
yes, of course, the piano is always very important,
Of
but
course.
but
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 yeah.
the clarinet is a singer that I have to support there, and it's
Mhm.
always it's a beautiful thing, and it's basically nonverbal because you as the mice as the conductor are standing there, hopefully helping us both. That's what your job is. But nevertheless, I have to intuitively hear what the clarinet is doing, the way you listen to a great singer, and
Mhm.
know when to breathe with them, or you just feel when they want to push forward or backward. It's a marvelous nonverbal process.
Hmm.
It's a,
And the
it's a privilege
acoustics
that
of
we have.
the acoustics at the Schuster Center is really, really wonderful, where you're gonna have no problem conversing with the wind section, hearing each other. So it's gonna be a lovely collaboration.
I'm looking
I
forward
have
to that.
Yeah, the one final question I do have is which one's your favorite movement of the three?
Oh, the answer is yes, of course.
They're all your favorite. Well, I was thinking that you probably say all because it's such a storytelling from the beginning to the end.
Absolutely. I do have a favorite moment, and
Oh,
I hesitate to mention it because
okay.
the trouble about talking about a favorite thing or telling a person, make sure you listen for the bassoon solo or make sure you listen for the transition into the second subject. The trouble is that music is so complicated and there's so much happening that if you listen too hard, you'll actually miss it because
Actually, it's so true.
you both have to focus and scan, and if you
But
focus too much, sometimes you miss something else that happens. But I'll just go ahead and be self-indulgent and say that the second theme in the last movement, the famous
hmm
one,
yeah.
which comes back in triumph at the very end, um,
Hmm.
is a very gorgeous theme. It's very
Hmm.
Tchaikovsky, by the way,
Yes.
especially the first time it's heard with the accompaniment and the winds and brass very discreetly. But that the orchestra plays the theme and then the piano plays it, and then later on in the movement, the orchestra plays the theme and the piano plays it. But the piano adds four extra bars at the end of that,
Yes. Yes.
and that just gives me the shivers. I don't know, I can't describe it, but it's really I don't know. It's a moment where you feel that all this great romantic emotion somehow has actually worked and you have transcended somehow. You're even
Hmm.
higher off the ground than you were, and it's such for me. It's only four bars, but it's it's incredibly masterful of him to insert it at that point, because that's what I
Hmm.
call the Mozart trick. Mozart
Hmm.
was so profligate. He was so over talented.
Hmm.
Very often in a beautiful movement, Mozart can say, here's a beautiful theme. Well, here's another one. Oh, you like that one? Here's another one. Here's another one. Here's another one. And you think it's all over. Then at the end, he says, aha, now I'm really going to stick a very beautiful and very pleasant dagger right in your heart.
It's yeah,
In
it's
other
very
words,
it's so
or
typical.
he's going to up the ante. You know, he's going to
Mhm,
say,
absolutely.
you think you've been having a great time, and I'm just gonna say, you if you like that,
Exactly.
I have one more card up in my I have another card up my
Yeah.
sleeve, and I think it's a marvelous moment. So I hope if those who know it well can enjoy it, and those that don't know it well shouldn't worry about it too much because the piece is so
Exactly. It should just feel organic. It just
yeah. But it's just
let it
it's
naturally
just a
come to you.
moment that I always note inside of me in the heart as I'm
Oh,
playing it.
that's so special. Well, thank you so much for sharing. For me, I feel like with especially the Rachmaninoff piano concertos, he's such a master of the triplets.
Yes,
Like, is if there's any composer who can make the triplet be so exciting and energetic to all of your being,
that's right.
this this composition is it because I don't think any other composer can really be so, I don't know, persistent about playing so many triplets and still keep it interesting the way Rachmaninoff does it.
That's right. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, Garrick, thank you so much for your time. This it's so lovely to be able to chat with you before, we meet again in September. And we are so excited to have you on stage at the Schuster Center with the Philharmonic and to open our new season. So we look forward to having you in Ohio again.
And I very much look forward to being with you in less than a month.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Garrick. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you.